Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome to our Former Athlete Society question and answer. This is Adam Ringler here, and welcome to this week's live YouTube Q&A, right? And I do this for the Former Athlete Society, and I'm excited that you're here. And whether you're watching this live right now on YouTube or catching the recording later, because I'm going to end up sharing this at some point here pretty soon, whether it's live or the recording, I've lined up 5 fantastic questions today, straight from the members of our Former Athlete Society, our community group, and each one of them opens the doors to much bigger conversations about training, smarter, recovery, how to recover faster, and just quite frankly, living stronger as a former athlete well into our career. So this is going to be a fun one. We're going to unpack some really cool things today. And everything that I'm going to talk about over these videos is about you. It's about giving you some value about how you can manage your health a little bit better, right? And we'll end up talking about that quite a bit. Now, I do want to talk about today, I got a couple questions from our participating audience. They've emailed me. Again, you can email me questions at YouTube at adamringler.com. That's probably the easiest way of getting your questions directly to me, right? And I have some things about the leg press. I have a question that's coming up a little bit later about how to make intelligent decisions around protein intake and fat sources. We'll end up kind of diving deep into that, certainly. Talk about foam rolling and when to do it and why it actually really matters. And we'll discuss how to adjust your training when life outside of the gym starts demanding more of your energy, which is something that I'm somewhat struggling with right now, with my coaching workload taking quite a bit of my time and attention, as it rightfully does, as it rightfully so. So we're going to get into all of those things, right? And then we're probably going to finish with a real sort of tactical conversation about getting some sunlight for some vitamin D work, while still, more importantly, protecting your skin from burning and long-term UV damage. So without further ado, grab a coffee, join me here, grab a notebook, and maybe even stand up, stretch a little bit, maybe for a couple seconds here, because I have a feeling this is going to spark a few aha moments for you. And I want to jump right into all of this. Now, before I do, a couple different things for this group. Number one, here I am, Adam Ringler. I've been a strength coach all of my life. So if you're new to our YouTube channel, right, welcome. I want to welcome you here. If you found this through the algorithm, through some crazy stuff, I don't know how it works. However, I do want to welcome you. But I've been a strength coach in the Division I, Power 4 level all of my life, right? And I want to take all of the lessons that I've learned through all of this and give you straight up answers to some of the most complex questions that you might have. Now, in addition to all of that, quite frankly, you can find me right here. It's also at adamringler.com or at adamringler on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, all of the social medias. I'm sure it's on Facebook as well. So join me over there. Let's continue to have this conversation going back and forth. I would love for you to engage with what we're trying to share and what we're trying to grow. So let's jump right into it. Question 1, the leg press. Is it friend or is it foe? Now this one comes from Kansas City. Jamie ended up writing this question. Let me read it from my screen here. I've heard mixed things about using a leg press for athletes, right? How do you balance force production and stability work? And are there any situations where it makes sense to program it? Now, Jamie, this is such a solid question. And it's also one that coaches in my world, we debate all of the time, right? Sometimes probably, quite frankly, way too much, right? And we do so with way too much emotion as well, because I think we tend to assign some morality to exercises. Like squats are good and leg presses are bad. But the truth is, exercises aren't moral. They're tools. And like any tools, it's about how you use the tool and when you use it, right? I'm not going to use a hammer to fix a window. But in the same way, I'm not going to use another tool for a job that it's not assigned for. So let's start with the criticisms. The biggest knock against the leg press is that it removes stability demands. Your back is pinned, your feet are in a locked position, the machine supports you. And because of all of that, the argument goes, you're not training your stabilizers. You're not integrating your core and balance systems. And guess what? That's true, at least partially. When we squat with the barbell, and this is my lights, right? This is live, it's YouTube. When we squat with a barbell, especially a front squat, we're demanding a lot from the trunk musculature. Our proprioceptive systems are engaged, our joints are learning how to coordinate under load, and the leg press doesn't do any of those things. But let's also flip it for a second, right? Let's is taking the stability out of an equation or an exercise always bad? Not really, not necessarily. Sometimes we actually want to take the stability demands out of an exercise. So here's where I've seen that the leg press shines, at least in my work, right, at Colorado. Picture one of maybe like a women's volleyball player, right? And she's maybe is coming off a grade 2 ankle sprain. And she's been cleared to start loading her lower body, but she's maybe a little tentative. Like her squat pattern is ugly, perhaps, right? And weight shifting from left to right or right to left, shifting away from the injured side. Maybe there's a valgus collapse that's starting to kind of creep in a little bit. Do I want to load her with the barbell and watch these compensations get grooved in? Of course not. Nobody would want that. But I still need to actually rebuild some strength in her quads and her glutes and her hamstrings. I still want her to feel confident pushing against some level of resistance. So we step into the leg press. And now she's pressing with both legs. She's balanced. She's supported. There's no fear of rolling that ankle again. I can load her up. I can get force production throughout those regions, right, in a way that would otherwise maybe be somewhat risky with free weights. And that's one scenario. Another is maybe in-season maintenance, right? I've worked with basketball players that are having deep in their conference play, right? Practices are long and games every 3 to 4 days, knees probably barking, right? Achilles and tendons, things like that. In the context, we're not trying to set PRs on the squat rack, right? We're in season. The only thing that matters at that part of the year is ball, right? So we're trying to keep some strength levels high without adding wear and tear on their bodies. So a few heavy sets of leg press, if that gives us the training effect with less joint stress, why wouldn't we do it, right? It seems like a no-brainer to me. Now, does this mean that I'm always programming the leg press for everyone? No, not even close. But with healthy athletes in the off season, I want to see them squat and hinge and lunge and do weighted carries, these movements that demand stability, coordination, athletic posture. But I view the leg press like seasoning. You got to sprinkle it in sometimes because it enhances the dish. But don't make it maybe the main ingredient, right? I'm not serving up cumin on a dish just alone. It's a seasoning. Use it wisely, right? Now, a quick note on how I tend to program it, right? I like heavy controlled reps, right? Slow, eccentric, maybe a powerful concentric, some single leg pressing, maybe to reduce some asymmetries from left to right or right to left. I've used it with contrast sets, right? Where I'm pairing it with a plyometric, like a seated box jump or a pogo hop with a band. Something that maybe keeps it neurologically engaging rather than just simply mindless. So, Jamie, my takeaway for you in this question is don't fear the leg press. Maybe don't worship it either, right? Use it intentionally. And maybe use it especially for athletes who are returning from injury or phases where their joint health is a priority, right? So balance it with free weights, right? Use them. Don't go all in on one versus the other because, listen, we do need to train the entire kinetic chain, right? So great question. I appreciate that one being sent in. Couple of different things. I want to pause here for a moment, right? If you have tuned in to our channel, welcome. I appreciate you here. We're doing a live YouTube right now. And I'd love for you to like, subscribe, maybe hit the notification bell, right? If you're getting some value out of this, be part of this former athlete society and some of the education that I'm sharing with you. I would love for you to do that because, quite frankly, I'm looking at our numbers and I know we can do better. I know we can do better in these numbers. So be part of our community, join the former athlete society, and like, subscribe, engage with what we're doing here, right? So question 2, I'm bringing to you guys live. We're about 10 minutes into the show, and it's centered around proteins, right? So this one's from Lewis. When I'm trying to be selective with my fat sources, okay. So apparently I can't read. This is my education here at Michigan State. I'm trying to be selective with my fat sources, but I want to keep my protein high. Does it matter if I lean towards red meat, chicken breast, or white fish? Are there any meaningful differences for body composition or recovery? All right, Lewis, let's think about this. I like this question because it shows to me that you're thinking just beyond macros. Now, I love my macro tracking, right? I use it on my phone all the time, Macro Factor. I've talked about it on previous shows here. You're asking questions about food quality, and that's important too. So you're asking about maybe how different proteins interact with your body, and that's a level of awareness that I wish more people, and quite frankly, my own athletes have, right? So let's start by comparing these 3 options, right? The 3 that you listed here in your question. Red meat. So especially like lean cuts like top sirloin or maybe even like 90-10 ground beef, that gives you more than just protein, right? You're also getting some iron, some zinc, some B vitamins, and probably naturally occurring creatine in those meat sources, or those red meats particularly. Those micronutrients are gold for athletes, right? Iron supports oxygen transport. Zinc improves function. Creatine adds recovery and power output, even if you're not supplementing with creatine or exogenous creatine. But yeah, red meat comes also with maybe some more saturated fats. Even in lean cuts, there's saturated fats. Now, the question you need to ask is that inherently bad? Not really. I mean, saturated fats isn't the villain that it was made out to be in the 90s, but you do want to have a balanced diet, right? So if your diet is all ribeye and bacon, then we probably have a problem. Sounds delicious, but we probably have a problem. So now chicken breast, right? This is the bodybuilding classic, right? Low fat, high protein, incredibly versatile. It's like, for me, I think of chicken as the Toyota Camry of protein sources. It's reliable, it's affordable, but it's probably not very exciting. No matter how much sauce and different things you put on it, it doesn't bring much to the table in terms of the micronutrients compared to red meat. Now, the third option is that white fish, things like cod or tilapia, right? It is certainly leaner. There's, virtually no fat in white fish. It's pure protein goodness. And this can be great when, like you're a bodybuilder or something cutting, or when you want a light meal that digests quickly. But the trade-off is this. You'll need to add probably some healthy fats elsewhere. So things like olive oil, avocado, or nuts, things like that. So maybe let's zoom out. Is there a best choice? Not really, right? What matters more is, I think, variety, right? I tell my athletes to think in 7-day blocks. And so try some things across a week. Maybe red meat for, 2 meals, chicken for 3 meals, fish for 2 meals, right? Give yourself a nice mixture of different amino acids and proteins, right? Micronutrients throughout the week. And while doing so, you're also probably keeping your saturated fat somewhat moderate. One other point that I think is important to maybe share is that don't fear dietary fat, especially as a former athlete, right? Fat supports hormone health, joint health, satiety. I see too many people cut fat way, way too low when they're trying to get lean, and their energy, their recovery, even their mood plummets, right? You can have a whole mood change just by eating low fat. So if you're eating maybe red meat, choose grass-fed when possible. Not because it's magic or anything like that, but because it often has a slightly better omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. For chicken, if you can, try to go skin, like a skinless chicken breast, that's fine. But again, don't be afraid of, chicken thighs if they fit your calories. And for fish, try to mix in some fatty varieties like salmon, right? I love salmon, especially because their addition, right, adds some vital omega-3s. So I'd say this, Lewis, rotate your proteins, enjoy the variety, let your overall diet, not just one food, actually drive your results. Start with that. I think that would really serve you well. For everybody else that are joining our YouTube live, welcome. Thank you for joining us. A couple different things here. Number one, my name's Adam Ringler. I'm a strength and conditioning coach, have been one all of my career. I do need to back up and say one thing. If you're enjoying our YouTube live and you're like getting some things out of this, here's what I want you to do. And I don't pause the show. Don't leave the show. It's a live show. So you can always, I don't want you to leave live to go and do our next ask that I'm going to have of you. But if you're watching the recording later, pause it and head over to adamringler.com. This is my website. I'm going to scoot out of the way. There it is, right? Head over to adamringler.com and become a member of our website, right? There's a free membership you can join. You get access to the articles that I write. You can end up jumping into the conversations. You can leave discussion posts. There is a paid membership as well, and this is the Former Athlete Society, and you get exclusive access to the Q&As, to the accountability calls. We do a masterclass as well. I put all of our videos and I've put plenty of our curriculum all behind our paywall. And I want you to be a part of our society, especially if you're a former collegiate athlete, because you work so damn hard to be who you are. I want to make sure that you have the lessons, the tools, the tactics, the habits to be able to continue in your athletic endeavors, post-college career. So next question, moving on from here, foam rolling. It's all about foam rolling for this next one. Now, Sierra out of Portland ends up asking this next one. So let's get into it here. Is foam rolling really worth my time? Should I do it before or should I do it after training? Should I even do it at all? That's great. Sierra, let's get one thing straight. Foam rolling, it's not magic, right? You're not lengthening muscles or breaking up scar tissue no matter how hard you grind into your quads, right? The human body just simply doesn't work like that. But that doesn't mean that foam rolling is bad or useless or anything like that. So we have to think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't expect whiter teeth overnight just because you brush every single night, but you do it consistently to maintain your health and prevent issues from occurring. Foam rolling is essentially the same way. It's about short-term changes in tissue tone for long-term consistency. So before a workout, absolutely, yeah. I typically recommend somewhere in the vicinity of 10 passes on each major muscle group. So things like your quads, your glutes, your lats. You're not trying to smash anything. You're just, quite frankly, you're just sending a signal to the nervous system to relax and increase blood flow. You follow that with some dynamic stretching and some activation drills and you're golden. Now, after training, this is where you can go a little bit deeper, right? You can spend more time. You can go 10 to 15 minutes on really tight tension areas. And then you pair it with some static stretching or maybe some diaphragmatic breathing. And all of that helps downregulate your nervous system and kickstart that recovery process. So if you hate foam rolling, cool, that's fine. Use a lacrosse ball, use a massage gun, even maybe some yoga-based mobility work, that's cool. But the key is doing something. Now, I got one caution for you. Don't let foam rolling replace movement. It's a tool, not a fix. So long-term mobility comes from strength training through full ranges of motion and regular movement. So don't just think, oh, I can just foam roll and I'm good. I don't need to train. That's like putting the cart before the horse. You actually have to train. You actually have to get some tension in your tissues. You actually have to go and strain a little bit to get the long-term range of motion results that we're probably looking for in most of your movements. So I appreciate the question. That's super, super important question. Now, just taking a pause here, one more thing before we jump into anything else. I've already shared it once. I'll share it again. Right there, you can find the Instagram. You can find me at Instagram, at Twitter, at Blue Sky, at all of the sites. I'm at Adam Ringler. Engage with me there. I'd love to have a conversation. And, hey, I'll share more information about not only the Former Athlete Society, but about what I'm doing, the behind the scenes of coaching, of this lifestyle that I live, which is, intercollegiate athletics. So if you've ever wanted to peek behind the veil of what it's like in elite sport, check it out there. I share all my information as well. So next question, and I think you guys are going to love this question, right? I certainly love talking about this because it is really, really important. And it's something I see that people struggle with so often. And that is life stress. Now, this is cool. I like this one because Brian, hey, Brian, is actually out of Boulder, Colorado. So it's backyard. It was literally the place. So Brian asks, my job has been insanely stressful lately, and I feel kind of wiped out. Should I cut back on my training volume or keep grinding through? How do I progress intelligently without losing progress? Now, Brian, listen, I feel this, man. I feel this. Life stress is real, right? It doesn't just show up in our bodies, right? It shows up in our mind. It shows up in our actions. It shows up obviously in our bodies, but our body has no way of differentiating the different stressors. So it could be a physical stress, like running an ultra marathon. It could be just work stress. Stress is stress. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between heavy deadlifts and a heavy work deadline. It just knows you're under load. So here's the principle that I often recommend to the athletes that I work with. You can't separate life and training. They're two sides of the same sort of recovery coin. So when life gets a little chaotic, I suggest maybe reducing the training volume. Not in the intensity, don't get me wrong, right? Keep lifting heavy, but do fewer sets and reps. So for example, you might at that time, you might have to drop the accessory work. You might have to cut the total volume by 30 to 50%. You might need to replace, a superset or one lifting day with mobility or aerobic recovery work. Now, this strategy keeps you strong without maybe overtaxing your recovery systems. Those recovery systems are super, super mad and compromised when you're training heavy, number one, and when those life stressors sort of start to mount a little bit. So for me, a phase that I love is auto-regulate, or your body will regulate for you. Think about it, right? Auto-regulate. You can take ownership of the auto-regulation process. But if you don't, that's fine. Your body's going to do it. So if you can ignore the signs, right? Poor sleep, something I'm dealing with right now. Irritability, also probably dealing with that. Slower recovery, certainly I'm sore. All of these things, my stress load is high. Your body will force a deload, often in the form of, hey, it's an illness or it's an injury. Also, maybe think about considering lowering your external stress. And this might be something from better sleep hygiene, breath work, maybe even, like a social support, right? I find that helps a lot. Your training doesn't have to happen in a vacuum. So think outside the box. Think of some different ways that you can maybe engage with a social support network or lower your total stress. Like I'm a big fan of meditation. I've talked about that already in my past accountability call from this last Tuesday about adopting a meditative practice. So think about some of those ways that you can maybe reduce your stress. And if you can't auto-regulate, then certainly try to pull back some of the volume. I find that's been super helpful. Now, I have one more question I want to kind of tackle today. if you are tuned in to the show thus far, number one, hit the notification bell. Be part of our Former Athlete Society and this YouTube channel. You'll get real-time access to all of our videos. And who doesn't want that? So right there, boop, hit it, bam, hit the bell, be part of what we're doing here. And I'd love for you to join our community. Now, this last one comes out of San Diego. This is Alyssa, and she asked the following question. And listen, there's no better place than San Diego for this question. So I'll start with that. And it is, I know getting sunlight is good for vitamin D and energy, but how do I balance that with avoiding sunburns or skin damage? Is there a smart way to get exposure without overdoing it? And listen, that's me, right? I'm a pale person just in general. So I say that is that, sunlight is, it's kind of like medicine, right? Now, like all medicine though, the dosage of that medicine matters. So for me, like I aim for early morning, maybe late afternoon sun when the UV index is a little bit lower. But here's the deal. Start with 10 to 20 minutes of direct exposure to your arms and legs. Now, San Diego I've always heard, my brother used to live out in San Diego and said that it is gorgeous and it is beautiful temperatures. I don't know about the sun or anything like that. However, what I do know is if you're in Colorado, like me, or anywhere that's high altitude, you're going to burn faster. So maybe wear a hat, my bald head, wear some sunscreen on your face, right? Be smart, be intelligent, be strategic with it, but also consider tracking maybe your vitamin D levels, right? And you can do that annually, you can do that semi-annually, but many athletes are, quite frankly, they're deficient in supplementation. Again, I'm not a doctor, I don't pretend to be one, right? I'm also not an RD, I don't pretend to be one. Anywhere from 1,000 to 500 IU of D3 might be necessary in winter months, but obviously do your research, consult with a doctor or a registered dietitian. Now, remember, sunlight isn't just about vitamin D. It also helps regulate your circadian rhythm, right? Dr. Andrew Huberman of the Huberman Labs podcast and show talks so much about sunlight as it relates to your vision and your ocular system and just regulation of melatonin and your sleep cycles, your circadian sleep cycles, right? It boosts your mood, it supports your hormone health, but you have to balance it, right? Enough to thrive, not fry, right? So if you're like me, who's normally pale, right? Like anything else, you have to dose it appropriately. I can't just go to 60 minutes straight. I started with 5 minutes, then 10, then 15, and now I'm building up some tolerance. I'm building up some level, I don't use the word tan by any means, but there's repetitive exposure. And the research have shown that the more, it's not over UV, concentration that really leads to skin damage or number one, even worse, skin cancer, but it's the actual burning. So if you're somebody that's pale like me and you don't get any sun exposure, but you do on a lake day and you get fried and you get super red and you get super burned, that's more dangerous long-term than the steady progressive sun exposure, UV exposure over time, done strategically, done smart, where you've built a tolerance over time. So be smart with it. And enjoy San Diego because it's a beautiful spot to probably live and play and work and all of those things. Now, I kind of want to wrap up the show. Hopefully thus far, you've loved the show. You love the content. That's what I'm trying to do. I hope that I've given you maybe some actionable insights to take into your week, right? I've answered some of the questions that you might have had, right? Now, remember, as a former athlete, your edge isn't in the complexity. It's in the consistency, the intentionality behind what you do. So those small adjustments, they add up over time. Now, if you're inside our Former Athlete Society, I need you to do one thing. I need you to do this. I need you to drop your biggest takeaways in the group. I'm going to share this on the website, and Right now, I know the counts for our former Athlete Society ship members. I want to see it in the discussion below the post. I want you to drop your biggest takeaways in the group. I'd love to hear how you're applying these strategies. Now, if you're not in the group, there's a couple of other things you could do. Number one, you could join us, right? That would be pretty rad. And you can join us at adamringler.com. It's hiding my entire face. But if I go over here, I want you to be part of our membership. So join us, become a member of the Former Athlete Society. And if you're not interested, maybe you're not a former athlete, you can still join and reap some of the same benefits of our Former Athlete Society. It just might not be curated for you. I'm talking very specifically, very niche about former college athletes. But maybe you want to be in the best shape of your life. Maybe you want to become the most elite version of yourself. You want to show up and compete every single day for you. And if that's you, then consider joining adamringler.com and our membership site there. Thanks for spending the time with me on this live YouTube. I need you to keep moving forward. I need you to keep winning. I'll see you next week. As always, like, subscribe, sign up for the notifications. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much. You are literally mean the world to me, and this society is something that I'm wanting to grow and will continue to keep working at. Until next time, stay strong, stay safe. I'll see you all.